You know what you do after dark. You lie in bed, scroll your phone, and somehow it's 1 a.m. again. Ancient humans did not have that option. No phone, no Netflix, not even electricity. And yet they were still up late every single night, doing something specific enough that scientists have actually studied it. Let's talk about what actually happened after the sun went down, tens of thousands of years before streaming existed. And before you assume this is just they sat around a fire and went to bed early, no. There's an actual published research study specifically comparing what ancient-style communities talk about during the day versus what they talk about at night, and the difference is genuinely fascinating. Plus, a wild detail about ancient sleep that completely contradicts what you probably assume. Let's get into it. Quick thing before we dive in. If you're new here, we cover ancient history and human origins like this every week. Real research, zero boring textbook energy. Hit follow now so you don't miss the next one. So, before we get into what ancient humans actually did at night, it's worth understanding why nighttime became a real, usable stretch of time in the first place. For most of early human evolutionary history, once the sun went down, that was basically it. No controlled light source meant limited visibility, real danger from predators, and not much reason to stay meaningfully active. Archaeological evidence suggests humans had sporadic control of fire more than 1 million years ago. But it's believed fire use became regular and reliable sometime after around 400,000 years ago. And once that happened, something genuinely significant shifted. Researchers describe this as fire quite literally extending the day. Suddenly there was usable light and warmth well past sunset, altering natural circadian rhythms and creating an entirely new block of time that simply hadn't functionally existed before. That firelit stretch between work is done and everyone's actually asleep is basically the birth of what we now recognize as nighttime downtime, the ancestor of literally every evening routine humans have had ever since, including whatever you did last night after dinner. So now there's usable time after dark. But what did people actually do with it? Turns out, an anthropologist actually sat down and recorded exactly what people talk about during the day versus what they talk about at night. And the difference is honestly kind of beautiful. So this is a genuinely real published piece of research. An anthropologist named Polly Wiesner spent decades studying the Juhwanzi Bushmen, a hunter-gatherer community in southern Africa, and she specifically analyzed the difference between their daytime conversations and their nighttime firelit conversations. And the pattern she found was remarkably consistent. Daytime talk, she found, centered heavily on practical matters, economic concerns, coordinating tasks, and what researchers call sanctioning gossip, meaning social gossip specifically focused on regulating behavior like calling out who wasn't pulling their weight. Basically, daytime conversation was the ancient equivalent of a group project check-in. But nighttime, firelit conversation was almost a completely different mode entirely, centered on storytelling, evoking imagination, discussing distant social connections, healing tension from earlier in the day, and passing along cultural knowledge and shared values. Wiesner put it in a way that's honestly become one of my favorite lines in all of anthropology. She wrote that stories, along with gift-giving, functioned as the original social media. Think about that for a second. Long before any app, before any platform, humans had already built a nightly system for connection, entertainment, emotional processing, and cultural transmission, just using firelight and each other's voices instead of a screen. And it wasn't just idle chatter either. Wiesner's research suggests these firelit stories helped people understand and remember others across their wider social network, and specifically helped repair social tension that built up during the day. So arguments that happened during daylight hours may have gotten smoothed over specifically during that nighttime firelit stretch, which honestly sounds like a genuinely healthy communication habit most of us could use more of. Okay, so storytelling makes sense, but eventually everyone has to actually go to sleep, right? Turns out even this part of the night doesn't work the way most people assume. And this next part genuinely surprised the researchers who studied it. So here's a genuinely popular assumption most people have, that ancient, pre-industrial humans slept longer and better than we do today, since they didn't have screens, blue light, or work stress keeping them up. Multiple actual sleep studies say, not exactly. Researcher Jerome Siegel and his team put wearable sleep trackers on hunter-gatherer groups with zero access to electricity, clocks, or artificial light. The Hadza in Tanzania, sand groups in the Kalahari, and hunter-farmer communities in the Amazon. And the results were genuinely surprising. These groups slept less on average than people in industrialized societies, generally somewhere between about 5.7 and 7.1 hours a night, depending on the season. A separate detailed study specifically on the Hadza found their average sleep duration was around 6.25 hours, with notably lower sleep efficiency than typical Western sleepers, meaning more time spent lying there in the dark, awake, not actually asleep. So all that assumed extra ancient beauty rest? Not really backed up by the actual data. If anything, modern industrialized humans with all our artificial comfort generally get more consistent, higher quality sleep than these traditional communities do. And here's a detail that reframes this in a genuinely positive way instead of a negative one. Researchers found that Hadza individuals also napped fairly often during the day, with naps happening on over half the days studied, meaning that shorter, choppier nighttime sleep was likely being supplemented by flexible daytime rest instead. So it's less ancient humans slept badly, and more ancient humans had a genuinely different, more flexible relationship with sleep overall, spread more naturally across daylight and nighttime hours instead of crammed into one solid block. And there's one more genuinely clever detail buried in this sleep research, because that choppier, less consistent sleep pattern might not be a flaw at all. It might be a built-in safety feature. So, researchers studying Hadza sleep patterns found something genuinely clever hiding in that seemingly poor quality sleep. Individuals woke up one or several times throughout the night at noticeably different times from each other. There was significant variation in when different people in the same group actually fell asleep and woke up. And when researchers looked closely at this pattern, they realized something important. Across an entire night, there was essentially always at least one person from the group who was awake at any given moment. This lines up with something researchers call the sentinel hypothesis. The idea that naturally staggered, individually varied sleep patterns across a group would have provided a built-in, rotating security system without anyone needing to be deliberately assigned a night watch shift. Nobody had to volunteer to stay up guarding the camp. The natural variation in each person's individual circadian rhythm and sleep pattern took care of it automatically, ensuring the group was never fully, simultaneously vulnerable and unconscious at the same time, all night long. So that worse sleep quality researchers measured compared to modern humans might not actually be a flaw in ancient sleep at all. It might be a genuinely smart, evolved safety mechanism, baked directly into human biology. That modern life with its locked doors, alarm systems, and solitary bedrooms simply doesn't require anymore. Which honestly reframes your own occasional 3 a.m. wake up a little differently. That might just be some very old, very deep evolutionary wiring. Checking to make sure the coast is still clear. So here's the actual takeaway. Ancient nighttime wasn't some empty, wasted stretch of darkness before everyone passed out. It was a genuinely rich, structured part of daily life, built around storytelling, emotional repair, cultural connection, and flexible, naturally staggered rest that doubled as built-in group protection. No streaming service required, just Firelight, a good storyteller, and millions of years of evolution quietly working in the background to keep everyone safe while they slept. Next time you're up at 1 a.m. scrolling, just know, somewhere deep in your biology, part of you might still be keeping watch. If nobody taught you the actual research behind this in school, follow. We cover ancient history and human origins like this every single week. Comment what story you think you would have told around the fire. Because honestly, I don't trust myself to improvise entertainment for an entire tribe. And if you want more of this same ancient humans were doing more than you think energy, check out the video on what ancient humans did all day, linked right here. It's basically the daytime companion to this exact video.